If you've not read any of the books I'm about to talk about, it's either you're old enough to be my dad or you're smart enough to know that people who believe in God don't need to read to pass exams. And even if you are like me, who have read any or all of these books for one reason or the other, I will still advise you to hold on to your remaining brain cells because the truth I'm about to reveal to you in this video will blow your mind. It's no surprise really that JAMB gives us storybooks that they will ask us questions on, because the 4 subjects we would normally answer questions on are not enough to provide 180 questions. But I've read some of these books and I can't help but wonder what the hell was going through their minds at JAMB headquarters when they picked these books. For the sake of all of us who have had our attention spans ruined by the amazing app TikTok, I would only be reviewing 3 of these books. Okay, I lied, I'll be reviewing 4 because I've not just spent 1 week of my life reviewing 4 interesting books only to talk about 3 because of some hormonal teenagers. The current book JAMB has been using since last year is called The Life Changer. It's about a mother of 5 children. Yes, 5 children. With the firstborn son being a straight-A student, her lastborn daughter being a French prodigy, and every other child in the family being very boring or annoying. Yes, the writer managed to make the remaining 3 daughters have normal qualities like you and me, so we will not feel pressured by the almost incredibly unattainable standards being set in this book. It's obvious their mother has no friends because all of the stories she told in the book were all accounts of one girl she managed to have met while she was still young in the university. She called this girl her friend, but you and I both know that she must have been lying. Her must have spent most of her time in the university with her husband, enjoying all of the sweet parts of marriage. Contrary to the fake life she told us she used to live in her youths, this woman told the funniest life lessons I've ever heard about. Starting from the story she told us about the lecturer who was simply complimenting her but she misinterpreted as immoral gestures, to the story of the guy who got catfished and almost lost his life in the hands of inexperienced armed robbers. This woman managed to make me laugh through every single page of this book. I also noticed that the way the stories in this book were narrated was quite personal, and I hope the writer was not projecting. But even though, if anyone happens to know the writer in person, help us check up on her because we have heard her side of the story, and true, waiting life do no good. Moving on to the next book on my list, we have Sweet 16. I remember reading this book when I was 16 and finding it hard to relate to most of the things the main character went through because she was a girl, and I had zero experience when it came to matters that concerned girls. But nonetheless, the story was anything but sweet. This girl kept on talking about her daddy like he was a member of the Avengers when they defeated Thanos in the Endgame. I can't count the amount of times I almost tore the book into shreds because she wouldn't stop talking about her dad. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not as if I lacked fatherly love while growing up, but I'm sure this was the main reason the mother decided to send the daughter to a boarding school, just so she could enjoy sweet parts of her marriage without any annoying interference from her overly curious daughter. The father, on the other hand, was one of the wisest dudes ever to be written about in the entire history of fiction. This man kept dropping words of wisdom on every single page of the book, as if Canadian lard was part of the secret ingredients that were present in the secret recipe for his specialty. I mean, if you've met me in person, you know I can't go a day without referring to something this man said in the book. This man once said, and I quote, "Please, don't allow anybody, and I mean anybody, to touch in your private parts." Bro, I can remember reading this part of the book back then and coming to a conclusion that no one could ever be as wise as Mr. Bello. The Last Days at Focado's High School is actually a fan favorite among students who wrote JAMB in the 90s. Okay, I'm just kidding. But I can remember this book trending like mad when I was in junior secondary school. I did not read it because I wasn't one to succumb to peer pressure, but I did read it recently, and to be very honest, I don't see what the hype was all about. I mean, as someone who has read after, I did not think tragic romance could get any worse, but this book exceeded my expectations. This time we had the usual genius character, who in this story wasn't simply a nerd, but doubled as a jock. This guy lost his mother, his girlfriend, his crush, and even his street credibility, all in the span of 1 year. For a main character who did not end up becoming a drug addict like in a HBO Max teen series, this story was way sadder than I could have ever predicted. The saving grace for this book was the presence of a female protagonist whose sexuality was not specified, and for this reason alone, the book was way ahead of its time. But the writer, true to his fashion, did not fail to deliver tragedy by making her background story very traumatic. The last book I'm going to talk about is titled Independence by Sarah Ladipo Mayeka. It's a story about the very first Yoruba demon to spread his influence outside of Nigeria. This dude was a genius who had a very interesting romantic life, second to that of Einstein. It's obvious the writer of this book was well versed in writing books that were so complex the average Nigerian student would fail an exam on it. The main character of this book made a lot of dumb decisions for someone who was supposed to be very smart, but I'm sure the moral of this story was to emphasize that people who are book smart aren't always street smart unless you are a follower of Mr. Bello. This book was very long and I pity those who had to read it 1 minute to their exam, but if there was one thing I learned from it, it's most definitely that gbogbo alamaje breakfast. In conclusion, everything I said in this video was cap. I really enjoyed every book in this video, except for Independence. It was quite long and boring. If you enjoyed this video, share it to your friends and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thanks for watching.